László Mérő, or Mérő László in Hungarian, is a mathematician, a research psychologist, professor at the University of Sciences in Budapest, and he teaches economic and decision psychology. Mérő László is co-founder in computer game companies. He's author of about 20 books on subjects like reason, love, logic, life, money, science, and more. He coined the term Mone, which is a replicator in the financial ecosystem, analogous to the gene in biological ecosystems. He is, in my opinion, one of Hungary's top minds. Alright, so I think that the subject of the Mone is so important and so awesome that I want our English-speaking audience to hear about it. So you talked about your book, how it was translated to German, and I think its main idea is the Mone. What is the Mone?
Well, the Mone is what I realized is that the logic of life is fairly universally the same, whether it is biological life or spiritual life, mental life or economic life or whatever. Well, with the spiritual one, there was by Richard Dawkins a concept created, the meme, and this would be logically the same for the mental beings as the gene is for the biological being. And for me, it somehow it looked so that in the case of economic beings, that is enterprises or whatever, small and large beings, there are of course also in the economy. There is the logic of their living is very similar to the logic of biological life, and this is what I expounded in a book. And in fact, so in a sense, well, this is my worst book to say. In a sense, the best because it is the most original. Because here is something that I put together.
Exactly. I haven't heard anybody use this concept of life for finance, for money, right?
Yes, I haven't heard it either. And also in Hungary there are fans of this idea, but of course just a few people. So who proved to be vulnerable to this concept, who proved to be sensible to this, so sensitive for this concept, they, like you, for example, they found it interesting, but I should have written it much better. So by now I know how I should have written it.
Maybe you should rewrite it.
No, I rewrite it after 2 or 3 years, so the German edition is already the new. But by the way, so in Hungary there is a big difference whether you are writing a book in Hungary or in Germany. Not only the language, it is also a big difference. But in Germany there was an editor of this book who understood what is going on in this book and changed the title, not so as Robert, it changed to a eye-catching title instead of a boring title, but it changed only one word. It said the biology of Geld, of money, instead of the evolution of money. And in fact, what I messed up is that I spoke about Darwin because we are always discussing Darwin, but I should have emphasized I should have emphasized Gregor Mendel, because it is about the Mendelian approach, not the Darwinian.
Yeah. So could you describe that? Could you talk to us about the Mone? Because I think it's such a catchy and simple concept. So you said that the Mone is for money as the same thing as the gene is for biology, or the memes are for our ideas, right? And
Yes, absolutely. But this is somehow in a too over sophisticated way written in this book. And when I had in Hungarian an editor who would have proposed me to change the title from Evolution of Money to Biology of Money, that is, then I would have realized that I shouldn't emphasize Darwin, I should have emphasized Mendel.
So do you agree with the new title? Do you like the new title, or you think it's bullshit?
If this had been a Hungarian editor before I gave it to the press, then the book could have been written much better, because I would have realized that I was in an impasse, in a dead end.
Well, then rewrite the book. You should republish this, because this idea should get out to as many people as possible, because it's such a simple concept and explains so much about what's wrong with capitalism.
No, I am afraid that this book is screwed up, is fucked up by this not very good book. So somebody else should write it in a right way. Somebody who understands what is going on here, perhaps even in the references it should, of course, be present.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the actual concept. Okay, so let's not do the meta. What is the Mone, and how do they interact? Just for our listeners to get a feel of how can they multiply, like a gene, right? It tries to spread in the gene pool, and the money basically does the same thing. So money tries to make more money. Money tries to go to the institutions that multiply it, right, exponentially.
Well, for example, a believing person would say that God said, proliferate and get more and more. Let be more and more people in the earth. But if God said something like this to the living being, it didn't. Now we know that it must not have said this. It must have said that because it is not the living being that is the basic unit of
it is the gene.
It is the gene. It is the gene that has nothing else to do but to be present also in the next generation. And it is the gene that creates machines, surviving machines, like animals or like people, like humans. You are and me and I am the surviving machine of my genes.
I am glad to be able to talk to you, surviving machine, impersonated as Mérő László. So a surviving machine for a Mone, what would that be?
For a Mone, the surviving machine is an enterprise, is an economical being. It is the enterprise that gets born, that dies, and that lives maybe for a long time, maybe only for a short time.
And an enterprise is a nice word, but sometimes enterprises get bigger, and those enterprises that get a lot of monopoly power and a lot of
For example, the same happened in biology. There are living beings that are living only in a very small part of the Sahara Desert, or in a very small part of some volcanoes. And there are living beings that are spreading all over in the whole earth. Like, for example, the rat, how to say, I don't know,
us monkeys, maybe?
Yes. Csótány, I don't know how to say
it. A cockroach, yeah.
Cockroaches, yes. So rats, cockroaches, mosquitoes, and humans. So we are in a very good pool. So the same way, there is, for example, here the bakery at my street corner. You won't ever hear of it. only those people know them who are living in these two or three streets. And there is McDonald's, which is like cockroaches and mosquitoes. It is all over the world. So the same logic. I am a mathematician by education, so I think that if the logic behind two things is the same, then the working somehow the basics of the working must be the same.
And I think they are. And I think they are working in
Yes.
very, very similar ways. And the same way that the human virus has spread over the entire planet and it's still a question if we are gonna like choke ourselves and like overpollute our oceans and forests before we are out. So in the same way, could money itself create this self-fulfilling prophecy, this like exponential spreading that will lead to a situation where the snake bites its own tail?
Well, I don't know whether we are now overpopulated or not. I think not yet. So, for example, we are very easily able to produce food and everything that is needed for the life for 10 billion people, for 10 billion people.
For more, I mean, I think we'd be able to, like, for 20 billion, we would be able to produce food. Like, if there is a Nachfrage, there's going to be people who produce that, yeah.
Yes, even for 20 billion, I'm quite sure we can easily do it.
Maybe we just got lucky. Maybe this process whereby humans regulate themselves and our populations are growing, but then they flatten out at like 10 or 11 billion. Is this going to be the case for money, right? Because I'm not seeing any breaks whatsoever on the expansion of capital or the Mone ecosystem.
Money is not the analogon of human. Money is the analogon of gene.
Yeah, but we are carrying the genes, right? So by limiting our numbers, we are limiting the number of genes.
We are carrying the genes, but for example, I and my dog have more than 90% the same genes. So it is the gene that counts, not the being.
Yeah, but
come and go, but the genes may survive even if the mankind would extinguish.
Okay, but then how do you quantify success, right? Like, is it important for a gene to be represented in numbers or how?
Yes, to be present in as many copies in the world as possible. But for the gene, it doesn't make any difference whether this copy is in a dog, that copy is in a monkey, and that copy is in a human being.
Should we think more about this? Should we actually honor our genes more, and should we make sure that our genes are more omnipresent? Should we create more dogs and more pigs or whatever, monkeys, so that
for the gene it doesn't make any difference. If a gene is able to be present in a man and in a monkey, then it doesn't make any difference for it.
I argue it's the same thing for a Mone, right? So you have your bakery down the street, and you have another bakery next to it, and now you have two bakeries, and they are gonna like go into some kind of theoretical game about like who's gonna have the lowest price, the best products, and the cheapest raw materials, right? So imagine like bakery A is selling the bread for €1.
Wait a sec. They are the common genes for both bakeries. Both bakeries are baking something rolls. Both bakeries are striving to be cheap.
Exactly, like most humans are similar.
Yes.
But some bakeries are a bit different, and some people are different. And so my point is that my big question to you is, we have seen cases where a mean company, a shit company, a company who is hiring a lot of people for a lot of money to make lobby for them so that there is no environmental protection. Like a big oil company hires a lot of people to combat, green policies. And that's exactly what a Mone wants. If I am a Mone, if my only goal is to get more Mones down the generations, then I love to be sitting in ExxonMobil, because ExxonMobil
Yes.
makes sure that there's going to be no break in like in this company being bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's true, but there will be other mones that try to restrict your growth because they say that you are nasty, you are mean. So they try to compensate, and like for example now environmental protection is a very very efficient mone. It can
It's not a Mone. I think it's a
mobilize.
meme. It doesn't serve any
Yes, on the one hand it
monies.
is a meme, and on the other hand it is a mode as soon as it is attracting money, and it is attracting
But
money.
it's not attracting. It's actually, it costs money to do environmental
No,
protection.
no, nothing costs money. Something may attract money or may not attract money. That attracts money, it will be spent for. It is not so. It is not so. If you look at it from a biological perspective, then there is no cost. It doesn't exist. Then there is that a product may attract money or may not attract money. If it attracts money, then it will cost for you to buy it.
Mm-hmm. So you mean that in this case, the government is also like a kind of like a surviving machine for a Mone, right? So if a government puts out policy to prevent, environmental,
Yes,
damage.
exactly. And this is what I say, that it attracts a lot of money. It is a good Mone. Then the success of a gene is the number of living beings containing that gene. And the success of a Mone is the number of living economical beings containing that Mone.
Is there a point where the evolution of the Mone ecosystem is going to come into conflict with the evolution of our system? I mean, I think we're half biological, half meme-based, but like whatever humans want to accomplish in this world, do you think, just like by extrapolating biological processes to Mones, do you think that we might come to a point where Mones are going to like run out of control somehow?
Yes, of course, like genes are out of our control.
We choose. We evolution has stopped. We choose who survives. The dogs are there because we chose them. Like and they're
No, not even we choose that survives, because here is, for example, now the coronavirus. I don't think. I think it is just a conspiration theory that it is artificial. No, it is the normal product of evolution. And we tried now to kill it, but I'm not quite sure. For example, the influenza virus we were not able to kill.
we have pushed it back so much. Have you looked at figures of like how much the influenza virus has been pushed back now that everybody wears a mask? Basically, influenza is it's almost like dead. Like nobody gets the influenza because nobody breathes into each other's faces.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but back to the Mones, because I don't want to. I want to really share my main theory about this. So, evolution sometimes produces dinosaurs, and then the dinosaurs just like overnight disappear. Sometimes it produces humans, and humans, who knows? Maybe we're gonna have a nuclear war and everybody dies, or there comes a virus and everybody is kaput. What about the Mones? Like, do you see any like disaster looming there? Like, could there be like a ecological catastrophe within the Mone world that basically makes our entire financial system collapse?
Yes, it may happen. Like, for example, it is an old joke that well, we know the tools by which the First World War and the Second World War was fighted. But what will be the tools of the Third World War?
Nuclear and hydrogen.
No.
Yeah. Oh, and or cyber.
For the Fourth World War. For the First World War, the tool will be the stone axe.
Exactly. I think we can agree.
Yes, of course.
But it's not going to be a world war. It's going to be a lot of like localized small wars, right? Because there's going to be no planes anymore.
After the Third World War, probably the next World War will only be of a next evolution, because this humankind will survive it.
Yeah. I hope I will not live to see that. And I think a lot about those reasons why we could get there. By the way, at this point, I want to ask you the question: do you worry about existential risk? Do you think that there are some real threats that humanity is exposed to, and that we should like actually worry about?
Well, I am optimistic by birth, by nature. So I am not concerned very much about that. So, like, we have the tool for 70 years. We have the tool to extinguish the life in the world, atomic bombs and thermonuclear bombs and so on, and it hasn't been used ever.
Okay, well, I interpret this differently, and I'm glad and I'm grateful for every year that those weapons were not used. But I don't think it's reinforcing the theory that, well, okay, last year it wasn't used, so we have more chances that it's not going to be used next year because it was not used last year either. It kind of makes me more worried, actually, because people are not aware of the danger. Like, people take it for granted that, of course, we don't use nuclear bombs. But one motherfucker can push the red button tomorrow, no problem, and then everybody's gonna go crazy and releasing bombs. I mean, I'm not calm about this.
I don't think it is that very simple, and now we learn that it isn't that very simple. That for example, Donald Trump pushes the red button, and then Moscow is over. No, it is not.
This is the case. No, Donald Trump could have done that.
No.
What do you mean?
Trump couldn't have pressed it.
He could have he could have pressed it.
He couldn't have pressed it. He could have pressed the button, and then there are several people who could have stopped it.
Okay, exactly, there were some close calls, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where a submarine commander basically disobeyed the order, right? I think he was ordered to shoot, but he was like, wait, maybe you should not shoot. Basically, yes, avoiding the Third World War. Yeah.
Yes. So it isn't that simple to push a red button. So I'm not afraid that, for example, who is the North Korean?
Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il?
Kim Jong-un, or I don't know. Kim Il-sung I do, but I don't know the newest ones.
Kim Jong-fuckhead, just call it like that, yeah.
Yes, anyway, even he is not able just to press the red button, because in the next moment his country is not existing and all the others survive.
Yeah, but consider somebody who has nothing to lose, right? Like, maybe there's going to be some kind of major upheaval in his country. Maybe there's going to be a revolution, and he's got nothing to lose. He can go crazy, and he's like, fuck it, just let it rain.
No, everybody has something to lose.
And on the back, let's hope this is gonna save us.
Yes. Yes, okay. So I don't think that a madman may destroy the world. It can't. The world is too layered, with many strata. So it is not that simple that here is the red button, and if you press it, the next day the humankind is over.
Okay, well, let's hope that. I think it's a really nice hope and dream, and I share that. And I don't think I can do anything to like improve that. If I could do anything, I think I would do that because it it kind of worries me sometimes. But I really don't want to go too far away from my favorite concept, the Mone. And I've thought long and hard about this thing. And by the way, I do see how there could be like an ecological catastrophe within the Mone ecosystem, and how it could lead to us losing control over money. But here is a question for you. Do you think that money equals power? And you could have maybe named the Mone something like pow, as in like power, or like gone, as in government. Like it's like a unit of governmental power, a unit of just power. What do you think about that?
The same as if you would have asked it about memes. Memes, of course, have power, because everything that we are talking now, they are memes. They are also generated by small unites of human thought, which are called memes by Richard Dawkins. The same, that is, on the one hand, memes really rule, but there are very many memes, each of them competing each other, and there are very many mones, each of them competing each other. So an ecosystem is not just a being. It is something.
I understand, but I don't think that memes equal power. I think memes correlate with power. I think memes must confer some amount of power to its user. Otherwise, memes would die out. Like some memes really need like help us be more powerful. But what I mean with power is that basically what money is. It's with like. Much money, I can make a lot of people do stuff. I can pay you this much money and you will do this. And if I have a lot of money, then I can make more people do even more stuff. And to me, that's kind of like the definition of power, as like how much leverage I have in the world. What do you think about like the equation between like just power and money?
Yes, but you can't dominate the money. Well,
can we? Right? Can we? This is the big question.
No. A very simple reason why you can't, because here is, for example, the GDP of the world. This is the big pool of moles, and how much it is concentrated not in the hands of Bill Gates or Elon Musk or whoever, but because it is 0%. Even the wealth of Bill Gates, I don't know who is now the first at the list.
I think it's Elon Musk today, but tomorrow could be somebody else. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, how much it is? It is 0% of the GDP of the USA. 0.00%.
No, it's actually 0.1%.
No.
Well, no. Sorry. No, it's 0.5%. No, so Elon Musk's net value is 200 billion, and the GDP of the US is 20 trillion. So 200 billion to 20 trillion. I think it's yes, it's 1%.
It's 1%.
Huh.
No,
it's a lot. It's 1%.
1,000.
I never thought of that. 20 trillion to 200 billion. That's 1%.
20 trillion. Yeah, that's 1%, but
it's crazy, right?
200 billion. I don't believe it's 200 billion.
It's 190 or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're really fucking powerful people.
Yes,
well, powerful. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of say in companies, but yeah, like Amazon is worth maybe 2 trillion or like some crazy amount, maybe 3 trillion, and the dude who owns it owns a lot of money. Yeah.
Anyway, this is just 1%, and the 10 highest is still less than 5%. And on the one hand, what does it mean? That if say Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk disagree, then it is already balanced. And all of them are balanced by the GDP of the USA.
But what are you talking about? Like if they want to do something with their money, like that the U.S. economy is bigger than them, that means that they don't really have power, or?
No, but what I mean is that the same is as with genes. That is sometimes really living beings die out. They extinguish, but normally not. Normally, sometimes they have a bigger population, sometimes smaller. It is fluctuating, but normally they all remain. And sometimes when another dies out, by the way, in the long run, of course, most of them die out. So probably,
but some of their genes survive, right? So
yes, the genes still survive. Of course, this is the point. Just that the genes for the gene, it doesn't make any difference whether it is present in a dinosaur or in a human being or in whatever.
Yeah. It's so crazy that we have so many genes in common with all these animals. Like, I think I read that we are 60% genetically identical to the banana.
Yes.
So next time you eat a banana, it's like, hey sister,
Yes, but the banana is also able to grow. Is also able to absorb something from the air and so on. So
yeah. We are a big ecosystem, all just trying to roll this big, massive next generation of genes on.
Yes. So what I think is interesting to understand that we more or less have understood the logic of biological being, but we think that this is only true for the biology. And what I contend is that no, it is more or less true for every form of life, and we have to find the concept corresponding to the gene behind.
Exactly.
And also in the case of biology, it was not that easy, and that is why this should have been not about Darwin. Here is in the subtitle, not about Darwin, but about Mendel. Well, of course, then it wouldn't have been that spectacular, because Darwin is much better known than Mendel and much more controversial. By the way, everybody is discussing Darwin, but Darwin only said that we have a common ancestor with something like a monkey. Mendel says that 99% of our genes are the same. It is much more revolting, isn't it?
It is. I think more people should know about it. And as a biology teacher, I try to emphasize this as much as I can, because I think it's profound. It's mind blowing.
Yes, it's mind blowing, and we realize that it is revolting Darwin, and we don't feel revolting Mendel.
I hope the next book you're gonna write about something new, something also evolutionary, you're going to use Mendel. Okay, so next book you write about a new replicator, who knows what it's going to be? Maybe it's going to be like a unit, or maybe it's going to be like AI, maybe it's going to be like a program. Maybe they behave the same way on the internet, but whatever.
Yes.
Use Mendel in the title.
This is the way how to use Mendel in the title. The German editor found it, The Biology of Money. I didn't find it out, and unfortunately, I didn't have a Hungarian editor who would have realized that.
I sure hope that many people will hear about the Mone and will start thinking about, okay, wow, really, this is like a new form of life, and it works exactly like all the other life, and with all the natural disasters and all that stuff that.
To tell the truth, I used to be in science, so I am used to the fact that if somebody coins a good term or coins a good concept, maybe there are other people who will elaborate it. And of course, the glory belongs to the person who finally elaborates it. So maybe I coined a good idea. I'm quite sure I did, but I fucked it up. So
maybe it's not too late. Maybe it's one of those ideas like, like maybe AI was like 40 years ago. Like it was an awesome insight, but it just didn't have the processing power. Maybe in 2021 people are gonna catch on to the idea of a Mone and we'll thinking in terms of mones.
no,
Maybe in 10 years,
Hungary.
maybe it's gonna be a post-hume action.
Maybe yes, but it won't be me probably. So it will be somebody else, and I don't mind if it is somebody else. I love it. I like if it is somebody else, because I am more or less sure that this is a line that will become a research line. But it seems that not now.
Thank you for having put out the meme of the Mone for all of us to be able to think about.
Yes, but unfortunately I did it not the proper way. And this is, well, you are not living in your native country anymore, but I am living here, and I like living. Otherwise, I adore living in Hungary. So, but from this aspect, but if I decided to live in Hungary, then I have also agreed that I don't have this kind of infrastructure of support. I am always absolutely envy for the people when I read, for example, the credit list of big success books, because maybe it is not very rare that 2 of them are Nobel Prize winners, 3 of them are world famous scientists, and so on. And in Hungary this doesn't work. Especially not because I am writing it in my mother language, in my native language, in Hungarian, and nobody can read it.
Not all people, know the language,
Of course not. So in 1956, my parents were packed together, and they wanted to leave Hungary. At that time, 200,000 Hungarians left Hungary, but finally we remained here. And I don't know if my cultural mother tongue would have been German or English, then of course maybe I would start it again and write it.
Yeah, good question, right? Like actually, my grandparents did the same thing. They packed everything in '56. Everything was ready for them to go over, and like the last possible minute, my grandma called it off. She was like, "Nope, we are fucking staying." Which is why I was, born in Hungary and, I grew up as a Hungarian. Like, is it good, is it bad? Whatever. I'm not trying to publish in Hungary, for sure.
But to tell the truth, I don't blame my parents for that they remained. So
I also don't.
Yes. So I say that I had a chance to live somewhere else, even if I was at your age, before the communism, before the fall of the communism, but I could have left Hungary. So I went to West. I had invitations and so on, but somehow I said that until I can live in Hungary, I feel I like better living in Hungary.
I don't think that it's a bad place or anything, but the world is just so big and so exciting, and there are so many countries and languages and women and all this good stuff out there to discover. Why would you stay in one country? Like it could be the most amazing country. I like to travel, and I think like for me it was clear that
yes, we are not alike. We are very far from alike, and you can say it with raised head that okay, I like traveling, I like learning other cultures and other mentalities. I like living here, and I don't feel that imprisoned in this small country with this exotic language. You are, of course, a very rare exception who speaks that language, but that you know it as well as I.
It's nice to be rare. It's nice to be special, right?
Yes. So I like living in Hungary, and if I am not threatened in my life, then I try to. So, well, in Hungary, I shall tell it in Hungarian, and perhaps you translate it. So, well, excuse me, I didn't want it to tell it in English because I'm not able to tell it properly in English.
It's impossible to translate like lyrics, like poems into any language.
Yes.
I think,
Yes. But anyway, in English it's enough that I like living in Hungary. They will understand it because they like living in America or in England.
Yeah. I think about this thing about living in countries, I think a lot of people blame their misfortune, their failed relationships, and their life failure on the government. That sucks so hard. Like, people should realize it's not the government. Like, every country where I went, people were like, oh, no, our government sucks the most in the entire world. Like, everybody says that, right? No country where people think that there's like a worse government than theirs, or that if it's not the government, it's something wrong with the climate, or there's gonna be like the wages, or there's always something that you can point at. That's why I feel like shit. Well, actually, you could just reprogram your brain to feel well, right? Like, it's all in the head. And I think people should realize that. And
yes, I think that now we are in a very bad period of our history, that with Orbán. But well, for example, how long did a period of a very big effect? How long did the reign of Hitler take? How many years? 12 years, not more.
Yeah, just give him enough rope and he will hang himself. If you let him misrule for long enough, he's gonna suffocate in his own shit. Yeah.
But he didn't. And Germans are still, and they are right to feel ashamed because of Hitler. I think we shall also feel ashamed because of Orbán.
Well, yeah. I am already feeling ashamed of, like, a Hungarian outside of Hungary. Like, if you say, hey, I'm Levi, all right, cool, where are you from? Hungary. Okay. The first thing they're going to associate to, you're from the country of that motherfucker. Cool.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm from that country.
But I say that every nation has something to be ashamed of in their history.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not only the German, not only the French, not only the English. Everybody has. Now it's our turn, unfortunately.
Yeah, and okay, so to tie it back to the Mone, I think that, again, we can blame our fortune or misfortune on our dictators or, our political system, but I think there's something that nobody's really talking about that could be the next disaster, the next, like, an order of magnitude worse, which is when money starts to rule us. So I just want to continue writing on this topic of the Mone. If money is something that's trying to go to places where it has like a better chance to procreate, to make more money, and money loves money, right? Like, you go to the stock exchange, the successful brokers will attract more money because those are the people who people want to trust with their money, so that more money is making more money. And so you will end up by natural selection with companies and investment funds and survival machines for the Mones that are super successful. And here it's important to think that they're optimizing for making money on money returns. That's their production function. If they manage to turn some money to more money, that's what they optimize for. So my worry, or like my theory, is this: it could get out of control. It could get so out of control that today we still think, and to some degree we still control money. We're gonna tell the company what to do, right? But can it lead to a situation where companies are gonna rule us? Like, can money itself be our next overlord?
Well, just just switch one word in what you said. Instead of money, tell gene. And then you will see why I am not afraid. Genes did rule the world. Genes are ruling the world. Genes are doing everything. No, so we don't have to feel helpless towards the genes. And the same is with money, because there are very many kinds of genes, and they are more or less fighting with each other, and there is no dominant gene, and there cannot be a dominant gene. That is the point in biology. And the same is true for money. So I usually say that once we do something, let's do it seriously. So once we use this metaphor or this analogy, then use it seriously, then the logic of gene is the same as the logic of money, and to the reverse too, the logic of money is the same as the logic of gene. So if the genes didn't seize the control, then the money won't either.
Okay. Well, let's hope so again.
That's just the point is that you say that you speak about money as one thing. I speak about money as very many kind of things, every kind of month.
Yeah, like in every kind of impersonations or manifestations, every kind of different countries, different laws and companies,
exactly.
And financial systems.
That's why I'm not afraid. And by the way, this may be interesting for your audience. So, for example, a globalization, now we are speaking quite a lot about globalization, but a globalization has taken place in the biological life as well. It was when the genetic code became unique, more or less unique. It isn't unique, there are exceptions. And this is not because of the evolution. No, it is not because of the code itself. There were several trials, and if evolution a little bit accelerated with one code, then it will become universal. It is a mathematical fact. The same.
Could you give an example?
Well, for example, most of the present beings in the world use the same genetic code. That is the same table.
Even the same codon, like the same way to build proteins out of genes?
To build amino acids from nucleotide acids. This is a nucleotide triad.
Yeah, this is the codon dictionary. Yeah, how you have the 64 combinations of the 3 codons corresponding to 21 amino acids, right?
Yes. Not all of them has a meaning, and there is a redundancy in it.
Exactly.
But this is more.
But this is universal. Yeah, it's universal for life.
No, not totally universal.
Well, more or less, right?
More or less, but not totally. For example, the Candida is a dialect of this code, and a few algas. And there is, for example, the mitochondria. The mitochondria have a totally different table.
What?
You know what you are a biology teacher too. Do you know what a mitochondrium is?
But how can it have a different genetical code if it's living inside our cells?
Yes, but it is a life within the life. It is coded totally differently.
Wow, I am blown. Okay, I must check this out later because
check it
this
out.
is true. I'm gonna rethink who I am.
Yes, it is. So there is a life within the life, commanded by the totally different table. Wow. But the reason is very simple, because mitochondria are more or less optimal for
turning sugar into ATP, basically.
Yes. So, and that's why evolution has more or less stopped about mitochondria.
Okay, so you mean that not only the genetic code, but also the dictionary or like the structure of the code is going to evolve with mones as well?
Yes. Yes.
So like the playground is going to be
something like a monetic code. And this monetic code is getting more and more universal. So if you want to raise money for your enterprise, you have to do it in the same language all over the world, in the language of a business plan. Well, it can be written in Hungarian, in English, in German, but the structure must be the same.
Yeah.
Because this is the monetic code, this is globalization. And to revolt against if you use this logic, then to revolt against globalization is the same as if you would have revolted against the genetic code.
I guess using the Codon dictionary.
Yes,
yeah.
And you have a good reason to revolt against the genetic code because it has created very ugly animals, like mosquitoes or
like exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So to revolt against the globalization, according to this logic, is exactly the same as to revolt against the genetic code because it has created that very ugly animals. The monetic code also creates very ugly animals.
Oh yeah, they are really fucking ugly.
Yes.
There are these big oil corporations. I mean, they also invest in
I don't want to offend any company.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to hate.
Yeah.
So, but it is not because of the globalization.
It's because of it's because you just don't know what happens. Like you let evolution do its thing. Who would have predicted that humans are gonna take over the world in 3,000 years? Like I think it was nobody could have predicted that 100,000 years ago. Which it was like we cannot predict what is going to happen with our financial institutions and our monetary basis in 10 years.
Exactly, that is what I say. And the reason why I am optimistic is just the example of biology. Because maybe several species are extinguishing, are dying out, but the life survives.
Yeah. So let's hope that money will survive, the mones will survive, because they are very useful for us. This is why they are existing in the first place. We have created them because it makes our lives better. It's so easy to go to a shop, buy your favorite wine, and swipe a card. You got it.
Yes, but the old Babylonians, when invented money, they didn't know that they are starting a new kind of evolution.
The same way as, maybe it's too early to claim, but the same way as maybe we are kind of creating a new ecosystem of apps and kind of like AIs who interact in a way that we are not seeing that, how these APIs are kind of invisible.
Yes, that's right. I agree. But an ecosystem is already not directed by the genes. So from the genes, you can't describe the ecosystem.
Of whose ecosystem?
With using the genes, you can describe a being by identifying its DNA and so on. But you can't. But from the genes, the behavior and the working way of the living being, it follows from the genes.
Well, does it follow? I mean, yeah, what we do...
But the ecosystem doesn't follow from the genes. The way the ecosystem works, it is a...
it emerges. Yeah, it's a complex system. It emerges. Nobody could predict it, and you just disturb it like one micro something, and it can change the butterfly effect applies to complex systems.
Yes, but it is not determined by the genes.
Yeah. So, which is why it's hard to predict anything about it, which is why when I ask you questions about, like, do you think that our financial system is doomed to collapse? It's a stupid question, right? Like nobody can predict that, but it's a nice thought experiment. Like,
Yes,
what
that's why
lead to that?
I just wanted to warn you to do this big leap, because you can't leap from the genes to the ecosystem. You can't jump. This is a too big jump.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. If I just give you the genetic code, you cannot tell me how the humans are going to look, because it depends on gravity, on the atmosphere, on everything. Yeah.
And the same is valid for the money. So it is not money is, in essence, it is different from genes, but because we don't have a proper name, and I am guilty in this, that in this book I didn't give a good name for the
replicator, or
no. Yes, that money is the replicator, but it is not money. So
it's not money. No, it's the founding document of a company. It's the használati utasítás of a company. Yes. Basically, that's a Mone, right?
Exactly. Every sentence in it is maybe a Mone, like every sentence in our DNA may be a gene.
Exactly.
So it is not money, because we think that money is substitutable. One money is the same as another money. Also, the old Romans said "Pecunia non olet," that is the money doesn't smell.
Yeah, especially crypto money, right?
Yes, especially. But yes, this is a brand new development, the crypto money. When I wrote this book, there was no Bitcoin yet.
When did you write the book?
2006.
Okay, I'm not sure when Bitcoin was born, but yeah, probably around then.
No, it wasn't.
All right, so let's get into this. Welcome to the show, Mérő, László. I'm happy that you made it. You are an expert in many things. You have talked so much about artificial intelligence. Could you start by describing what do you mean by artificial intelligence?
I don't know exactly what I mean by it. I used to be an artificial intelligence researcher 36 years ago. So it was quite long ago. And I follow up more or less what is going on in artificial intelligence research and development, but I don't do it actively anymore. And my basic observation is that on the one hand, there is practically no really brand new idea. So most of the algorithms, the basics of the algorithms that are used now in the very successful projects, they were known 35 years ago as well, on the one hand. But on the other hand, at that time, we didn't know how good they are. Because, for example, just an example, if a chess program is making a move once a month, then you are not able to gain experience how good it is. And now, if the machines become 10 million times faster, then they will move a few times in a second instead of once a month. Then you can gain experience how good it is. And this experience is brand new. So this is a very new knowledge that we know that which algorithm work and which algorithm doesn't work. So now we have an enormous practical knowledge, and this is brand new because this was very, very far from available 40 years ago or 35 years ago.
And you mean that nothing new has been put out on the theory front? So it's mostly stuff that people have known in the 70s and 80s already, but their computers were just too slow to implement it.
Yeah, well, it was implemented, but it was practically unusable.
All right. And so do you think that today more development in the field of AI is going to be just giving it more processing power? Do you think that like a lot of new breakthroughs can come through, like new revelations, new insight, or we just have to like give it more processing power?
Practically, I haven't seen any new insight. The new insight is that at every particular domain, a different algorithm would work. So there is no such a science or such a thing as artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
There are several branches, several fields, and we even don't know, for example, let's say about a self-driving car. It is very good. They work very good, even today. But there are 3 or even more approaches that one of them is better at this situation, another is better at that situation, and nobody knows which is the optimal self-driving car algorithm. And the same is everywhere.
And these are all very narrow functions. These are very narrow AIs, so to say. So they solve one particular problem, like the chess or the Go player. Nobody thinks that the chess player algorithm is going to wake up and get conscious one day. Same thing for the self-driving cars. Nobody expects them to have human type intelligence.
They don't even want it.
They don't, of course, yeah.
Because well, if I met, for example, Magnus Carlsen, who is a chess world champion presently, of course my first thought was, let's play chess. But of course it wouldn't make sense because he would defeat me without any trouble. But if he says, I don't feel like playing chess now, it's okay, everybody will accept it. But if you sit in your self-driving car and say, take me to my godmother,
and the car says, I don't feel like.
Yes, and he says, I don't feel like, and of course I don't accept it.
All right.
And
yeah.
If it became conscious, then this might happen. We don't want it.
Definitely. So we do not want narrow AI to wake up and to be conscious and to have feelings and to decide for himself. Have you thought about the other type of AI, general AI? Do you think general AI has a role to play in human society?
I don't think so. No, we want AI to remain a machine. To remain a specific, and a machine is for a specific goal, for a specific purpose. So if it is, for example, a machine for translating languages, then I don't want it to diagnose my heartbreak.
And I think that makes sense. But there are people out there who dream about making a machine that's sorry, shit, I forgot to start recording on this one. So just to start this. Okay. So there are people out there who dream about creating AI, creating God that would be an artificial general intelligence that would be able to make itself smarter. So irrespective of you wanting it or not, maybe somebody's working on this. Are you concerned at all with a prospect that such a thing could be created and released from Pandora's box?
No, I am not concerned about it, because I'm quite sure that by the time it will be up to date, it will really come. It is very far away right now. We are very far away from it now. And by the time it will be actual, by the time it will be present or near, by that time, we shall educate a lot of experts who will be able to handle it.
Experts, educate them, and we're talking about like time scales of maybe minutes or hours here. I think most people who think about this subject agree that such a thing would be like a singularity, like an intelligence explosion, where the machine would make itself smarter.
But by that time, if my car says I don't feel like taking you to your grandfather, then I shall by that time I shall know where to put it. Normally I would dismount it, this car, the expensive car, I would throw out to the garbage.
Which is why it's nice to have old cars that are mechanical, that are not permeated with electronics, right?
Yes, but anyway, I don't want it, and my first reaction is that don't talk back. This is for me not okay, and but what I say is that by that time there will be university students whose certificate will be about artificial intelligence, including the unwanted case that it comes to a consciousness. What to do then?
Let's hope and pray that it will obey our experts, and that some kind of regulatory body will manage to restrain it from getting out of Pandora's box.
Yes, definitely, yes, and there will be very many experts who know what to do then, because by that time there will be also a legal regulation. That is why jurisdiction will tell that whoever develops an artificial intelligence must take a few countermeasures, and of course there are always crimes, but then not to take these countermeasures, it will be a crime.
Mm-hmm. So what do you say to those who would interject here that by definition such a machine that is superhuman in intelligence, because it can make itself more and more efficient by the hour, that such a machine will by definition will be more intelligent than us and will game us, will be able to like control us like we are able to control our pets and our machines?
On the one hand, we aren't able to control our pets totally. Always happens that a dog bites his master. Always happens that, so we don't control them.
If the dog bites you, then you're gonna shoot the dog, and that's gonna be the end of the dog.
Yes, the same will happen with the AI. We shall have measures to, in quotation marks, to shoot the AI.
Let's hope that we are the master and AI is going to be the pet and not the other way around.
Yes, I'm quite convinced that this will be the case, because on the one hand we shall see the science, on the other hand we shall have the expert by that time. So I shall know where to take it, where to go. As for example, when my computer goes wrong, I know where to go to fix it, to have it fixed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Again, let's hope that it's all gonna work out well for us. You have done a lot of work in the area of psychology, and this ties to a subject that I like to talk a lot about, which is personality. My personality, the entirety of my personality, of who I am, my mind, so to say, I think is a quantifiable material unit. And I think that if I'd like to know if what do you think? But my question is, do you think that it's ever gonna be possible to condensate a mind into a computer?
No, it isn't the same. I don't think so. So I don't think that you can copy your or my or Albert Einstein's mind to the computer, to anybody. No, it will be totally different because it has totally different experiences, it has totally different feelings. So no, I don't think that it is possible.
Okay, so when you say that it has totally different feelings, then you mean that it's impossible to generate a stimulus in the cloud or in a computer that are equivalent to the stimuli in the real world?
It is possible to make stimuli, but it won't mean the same for them.
What if you program it to mean the same?
No, that is you can't. That is what you can't. You can't even program a human to have the same feelings. So everybody has different feelings, even if we are attending school for several years.
Mm-hmm. So do you believe in some kind of a soul, or do you think that we are all just a bunch of atoms and our mind is an emergent program?
No, none of them. So on the one hand, we are not. I don't know what is a soul. About this, you should ask priests, not psychologists. So psychologists is only interested how this rounded computer works in our head. So you may, for example, you may study psychology, get a degree of it, without ever hearing the word soul, because it is the priest.
I think, yeah, I used the wrong word. Let's talk about the mind. Do you think that your mind is contained in your brain entirely, and if your brain is gone, then your mind is gone?
Yes, I think so.
So in that matter, you're a materialist, and you ascribe a lot of the phenomenological, the behavioral stuff to stuff that goes in your mind, right? So it is all generated up here.
This is not at all materialism. It doesn't mean that I exclude something spiritual.
What do you mean?
I don't believe in it, but I don't exclude it, so I am an agnostic, not a...
I'm an agnostic too, but what do you mean with the spiritual?
I don't know. Everything that is outside the hardware and software, and I do think that there is something which is maybe an emergent feature, maybe a god, whatever.
And do you think that it happens at the level of the universe? Like do you think if there's something spiritual, it's at the level of the individual, that there might be something like an energy that makes us work and live? Or is it more at the level of the universe, that maybe whoever created the universe must have been God?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know at all. So I think I don't even think on that, because as soon as I try thinking on this kind, I hit against walls, because I am not a believer. I can't start or I can't suppose that it's God that is arranging things, and as I am not an atheist, I can't say that everything is about material and material organizations. So I think that there are questions of psychology that are not solved and won't be solved, and this maybe because even now there are questions that are psychologists better at than priests, and there are questions at which priests are much better. So there are problems with your soul, which I would advise you to go to a priest instead of a psychologist, because they have 2,000 years of experience. So there are questions, and the reverse is also true. There are problems for which I would say attend a psychologist instead of a priest. Because a psychologist has learned and will know what to do. The priest maybe, well, he will always say something, but I don't believe they will solve it.
Yeah, I also think we need both, obviously, and it's great that we can choose whichever we believe, you know. I think my first choice would be a psychologist if I were to learn about something like the soul.
Yes, but there are people for whom I would say the first choice be a priest.
Okay, do you have examples for that? Like, do you have a question that you would rather ask a priest than a psychologist?
No, not for me. I would. Well, yes, maybe there is. For example, what do you think? What happens to us after our death?
Well, I have already answered to that. Your entropy starts to rise. That's pretty much what happens.
I don't think so, but if I want to hear something about that, then I wouldn't ask a psychologist, because I know that he doesn't know anything about that.
Well, I think a psychologist could say something about that. I think a psychologist should know that all the stuff in your brain creates what you call mind. And if the brain doesn't get more blood and more oxygen, then probably there is nothing there for the brain to create. So I would argue that a psychologist should say that there is nothing. Zero after death.
No, a psychologist may be a believer. Why not? I'm teaching psychologists.
Or maybe a neuropsychologist, like a neurosurgeon or something like that.
But no, I mean now about a therapist.
Okay.
Somebody who is not a priest, definitely not, has learned psychology at a science university, at a University of Sciences, and he or she may be, and of course many of them are really deeply, profoundly believers. As you can't say that a physicist must not be a believer.
Oh yeah, sure.
They are.
There's a lot of believers, amongst physicists.
Well, there is. The three best-known physicists are just three different types. Newton was a very profoundly a believer. Hawking was an absolute atheist, and Einstein was an agnostic. So he didn't say, he spoke about God sometimes, but not as a believer.
Exactly. When I say God or soul, I also don't mean the God or soul what is defined in the Bible. I mean something like, in quotation marks. It's
no, I don't say God bless you, and I don't mean
exactly. Yeah.
I don't think of God. I don't need to believe in God in order to say that God damn it or whatever, or God bless you or. God bless you is okay, there is not quite okay, but you don't have to be a believer to speak this way, because we have this meme. We have the word and we can use it even if we don't believe. And
I love it. By the way, so just to link God with artificial intelligence. Let's just suppose for a moment that there is such a thing as an artificial general superintelligence. Okay, it's sitting on an Amazon server. It's 3 orders of magnitude smarter than you or me or whoever, and it's basically it's so intelligent that to us it's like God. Like all technology that's advanced enough looks like it's magic. In the same way, that kind of intelligence is going to be incomprehensible for us. I think it would equate something that people usually call God. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think so. On the one hand, I don't believe that this kind of artificial intelligence will exist. By the way, for example, when AlphaGo, AlphaGo, defeated Keji, who was at that time the world champion, then Keji said that AlphaGo is the god of Go, And from now on, I shall only play humans, not gods.
Nice.
So this is, and of course, AlphaGo is not the god of Go.
Because now it's AlphaZero, right?
But I believe, no, not AlphaZero, neither AlphaZero is the god of chess or Go or whatever. They are not gods.
Well,
A believer person would never say, Keji is not a believer, obviously not, or maybe he is a believer, but not in our Christian science. He is a Chinese.
I think he used the word God to illustrate that it's just beyond him. It's a different category. It's above him.
He spoke about it like Einstein, not like Newton and not like Hawking.
Exactly, and I think this is exactly how I speak about it, like Einstein. Like when I say God, I don't literally mean this dude sitting up on a cloud. I just mean the thing that's like clearly above us and we cannot apprehend it.
No, this is what is our imagination about a believer, but a believer doesn't work like this. A believer knows that there is something there. He or she sees it. It is a direct perception in psychological terms. So I speak often about the psychology of belief, but there is only one thing which I never can tell, whether there is a God or not. You can speak about the psychology of belief without deciding the question whether there is a God or not.
Well, maybe you should start by like defining what God is, because I think many people mean different things.
I don't have to define it. I define what believing in God is. As a psychologist, I'm interested only in that. It is not a question for me as a psychologist whether God exists or not.
Well, maybe there are different beliefs in God. Maybe there's like a difference psychologically between a Christian and a Muslim believer.
No, there isn't. Both of them are seeing something. Psychologically, it is the same. So, for example, psychologically, seeing or not seeing colors is the same independently whether you see red or blue color. If you are colorblind, like me, who is I am belief blind, I could say, and probably you too. We don't know how it works.
Belief blind, yeah, okay, good term, nice,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I am not a materialist. Well, an atheist is a believer
that there is no God.
Yes, his belief is that there is no God.
Yeah.
So, for example, Hawking said, Stephen Hawking, that what I am interested is how the world could have originated, but there is no God to create it. Newton said that I am interested how God did create the world, and Einstein said that I am interested only in the fact how much degree of freedom had God in order when he created the world. Einstein is the agnostic. He is not interested because it doesn't make any difference for this question if God exists or not.
Exactly.
The other two approaches suppose that there is a God or that there is no God. Einstein doesn't suppose it. It is not a supposition for Einstein, but Einstein is interested how much degree of freedom it had, how is the world constructed, how much degree of freedom is in order to get to a world instead of having nothing.
Exactly. I think that's what all scientists should be. I think. I mean, I think it's not very rational to be anything but agnostic. What do you think?
No, this is not true. Newton is not a scientist. Hawking is not a scientist.
I don't know. I just feel like there is something about rationality that you need a certain amount of rationality to do some science, and you just have better chances.
No. When you prove something, then yes. But when you get to something, when you discover something, then you may use anything. You may use your belief in God. You may use your belief in the non-existence of God. And in fact, Hawking used this and Newton used that. So, and as soon as Newton sees that, for example, God must have used a specific kind of mathematics with the infinitesimal, with the calculus, then he will discover the calculus. But when he describes calculus, then there won't be any God in it. But maybe it is allowed that he wouldn't have discovered it without believing in God.
Full circle, right? Yeah.
Nobody prohibits it from a scientist. So as a scientist, you may be a believer, you may be an atheist, and you may be an agnostic too.
Yeah, and as long as you produce the right theorems, you're just fine. Yeah.
And nobody asks, how did you get to it? Because most of the people cannot answer this question.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, instead of doing science, are thinking about like what kind of way they should think. Like, for example, these days there's a paradigm about mathematical beauty, that in order for a theory to be true, it probably has to be beautiful. And it was the case for Einstein and for many theories. And it may be the case for later theories, may not.
Yes. But Einstein is only one example, and he was really agnostic. So if every scientist were Einstein, then you were right. If every scientist were Newton, then I could say that every scientist is a believer. A scientist must be a believer. And if every scientist were Hawking, then I could say, by experience, that every scientist must be an atheist.
Exactly, but I think it's really great that you can do science being a believer or being an agnostic or an atheist. I think it's beautiful, and you can start to look at science from, is it going to be a beautiful mathematical theory, or you can just look at it like, is it going to become a product that you can put on a shelf in 5 years? Like, there's so many different ways to approach science, basically.
By the way, I am a mathematician by education, as you said, and it's true. And well, I have heard in the university several beautiful proofs and theorems. And we always said that, okay, we understand it because you have explained it, Mr. Professor, and now I understand it. But how can we get to it? How can we find it out? And this question was never answered. No professor has answered this question, that how can we find it out?
Well, do you have a hunch? Like, do you have a feel how we would approach this?
The answer, the most sincere answer was that you have to be talented.
Yeah, I think you just have to have a lot of data in your head. You have to have a lot of experience. It's just like playing a violin. If you cannot play the violin technically, then you cannot figure out new ways to get new sounds out. I think in so many things, it's just practice, right?
No, not only practice
and creativity. Yeah.
Wrong. So there is something else. I don't know what. At the beginning, when I became a psychologist, a researcher, then I tried to research it, but practically no real breakthrough I found.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Okay.
I know that even the mathematicians don't think in the language of mathematics. Everybody thinks in a very different way. There are two very, very old mathematicians who wrote about this. One of them is Poincaré, almost more than 100 years ago, and the other is Adamar. Both of them are, if you have studied some mathematics, then you must have heard about them.
I used to live in Poincaré Street, so I looked him up. And what about just like a little back to AI. Do you think that the tendency that AI is destroying jobs gonna lead to some kind of cliff where we're gonna lose all our jobs, or is it gonna be like a transition? And is it actually good? And are we getting better jobs than before?
Yes. Yes, they will be different jobs. On the one hand, AI itself will also generate a lot of jobs. For example, the job of supervisors, the job of the person to whom I can take my self-driving car if it says, not he or she, if it says that I don't feel like taking you to your grandmother.
Or the mechanic, or the people who will feed it data and who will supervise the data. Yeah.
Yes, of course. But anyway, so 100 years ago, for example, 50% of the United States, 50% of the inhabitants of the United States was living directly on the soil, on the land. Now it is less than 2%, 9.6%. And what did the others do? They have a job.
For the most part, yeah.
Yes. So, well, maybe that more people will make their money by making this kind of podcasts or whatever.
So do you think it's a new, very important skill to maybe learn to code? I'm a teacher in a high school, and I try to convince my my pupils that it's more crucial and more important than ever to code. What do you think?
I don't think so. So I don't think it is important. It is important to solve everything that is solvable by machines, but we don't have to strive to make a real intelligence. So your machine, your phone is, I am quite sure, your phone can defeat you in chess. I am sure because it defeats also the world champion. Probably you are not Magnus Carlsen.
I'm not at his level, no.
So even if you play very good chess, it will defeat you. But you don't feel that it is more intelligent than you. It plays better chess. It is a better diagnostics. It is better in translating languages. It is better in several things, but it is not more intelligent.
True. At least not in all the other tasks that I do, and also like in reasoning and putting all those very specific skills together. Because maybe it just comes down to that. Maybe if you combine a very good image recognizer with a very good sound recognizer and transcriber, and you have some kind of really good logic to weave them all together like the brain does, well, maybe just one day there's gonna be a genie who will escape from the lamp. But we have talked enough about this, I think. So something more, yeah, go ahead.
There are people, for example, Yuval Noah, certainly know Yuval Noah Harari, Israeli historian, and he wrote 3 excellent books, and he often his major topic is this, that will AI overtake the rule over us? And his solution is to learn meditation and to learn this kind of things, because he says this is the only thing that can perhaps help. Well, I like his way of thought, his train of thought, but I don't think that this is the only way. There are many other ways too. We shall simply neglect them.
And we will have to find a way to counteract all these negative consequences, right? But I think we are humans, and humans are famous for only doing something when it's an imminent threat. I think we're going to wait until the last minute, and then we're going to start doing something about it.
I think the last minute is very far away yet, on the one hand, and on the other hand, by that time, we shall have the specialists to handle it.
Again, That's where we don't agree. But something more down to the ground is about UBI, Universal Basic Income. Some of the people who are fearing that AI is going to take away too many jobs too fast, and just for other random reasons, that just to give money to people to exist is a good idea. What do you think?
I don't know. Well, Hungary is not the country where it will be implemented first. Quite certainly not. So it may be a problem perhaps in Sweden but not even in a big country like Germany or the United States, because in a very big country there will be always very many people without actual income. So I don't know. I have never seriously thought about that.
I was just thinking about how maybe in Hungary we could talk about like a negative basic income. Isn't it so that in Hungary like money is taken away from everybody all across the board? Like it's like a negative UBI, right?
I don't know. Well, I don't know what you mean.
That as a basic income would be money into people's pockets. What happens in Hungary is exactly the opposite, is that the state takes away a certain amount of money from everybody's pockets.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay. It won't last forever. Like for example, well, it was a very big surprise for me that one of my short publications, just a short essay on Viktor Orban, was translated to German and published in the Neues Deutschland. I have never thought that I shall be in the Neues Deutschland. You know what Neues Deutschland is?
I don't know. We'll describe it.
Well, it was the official organ of the East German, of the DDR.
Of the communists, basically.
Of the communists, yes. And it survived. It exists till now. It is now a normal, like.
Well, example, now they have probably changed their rules and their editorial board.
Of course they did, absolutely. Like for example, in Hungary, it was Népszabadság. You may remember.
Yeah, once upon a time.
It was executed, but not so long ago. It was executed 5 years ago or so.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah, but it was shot in the head, and it was when it was executed, it was still the market leader.
Yeah, the same way as Index, right?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit different because instead of Index, there is now something else from the same people.
Because it was online anyways, and it's harder to kill something online and decentralized.
No, it is just a question of luck. It could have happened to Népszabadság as well, but in fact it didn't. It was too fast and too surprising. At that time, it was unimaginable that the market leader is simply shot down, is simply killed. By the way, by the time the index was executed, by that time it was not that very unimaginable anymore. So, can you imagine that, for example, Spiegel, that Angela Merkel doesn't like Spiegel and simply kills it?
I cannot imagine. I can imagine that, right? It's a stretch to imagine that. But let me tell you this. I think this is like a very far-fetched but not impossible scenario.
No, it is impossible in Germany.
Well, nothing is impossible, first of all, and second of all, there is Corona, so now you can do anything because, wait for it, Corona, right? So, I don't think it's likely, but.
No, in Hungary it is not so unlikely because it happens. But now we have a Viktor Orban. But we won't have it forever. I hope we have it for one more year.
Yeah, let's see what goes down there. let's talk about another very, very original and awesome idea that you had. This is, I think, the most interesting idea that I have read from your books. You have a book on the money. Basically, it speaks about the Mone, and I'd really like our audience to learn about the Mone, because since I've read this and since I know about the Mone, my way of thinking about money and human organization has changed profound. So could you tell us about what the Mone is?
It's a little bit too. But first of all, may I ask you, did you read it in Hungarian or in German?
In Hungarian.
Oh, yes, because it was published in German, and now I know why well, this is on the one hand, probably my most original book, but the most unsuccessful. In fact, it was the reason that Rowohlt doesn't publish my more recent books anymore. It did publish.
What a pity! What a shame.
Sorry?
What a shame! That's a brilliant. But what's the title of the book? Was Élő Pénz, the living money, right? Like das lebende Geld.
No. In Germany, well, I have rewritten the Élő Pénz, the living money, and published it under the title "The Evolution of Money."
Okay.
But it's surprising because I only learned that it was when I had it in my head that in German the title is not the evolution of money. It is the biology.
Yeah.
Yes. Now you see it in reverse in mirror, don't you?
No, I see it well. Die Biologie des Geldes, yeah. I think another book of yours was translated to German in a weird way, like something like Vernunft. Those észjárások.
Yes. Also, that was a mistake because in Hungarian, I threw out almost half of that book, 40%, and the German critics said I should have thrown out for half of it, and then it would have been an excellent book. And unfortunately, the whole book was published in German. Because the first book that was published in German, that was Mindenki másképp egyforma. It has two German titles, by the way. These two books are word by word the same.
And have different titles.
Yes. And no different word in it. Because it happened that it was first published by Birkhäuser. It is a small Swiss publisher. And it was then taken by Rowohlt. Only the title was changed, and it was the title is not a part of the work of the opus. The title is a part of the marketing. So the publisher may change the title without the author's noticing.